Welcome everyone to the Historic Area Commission meeting. It is Thursday, June 13th, 2024. Let's start by
Kevin Wade, Michael Westman,
Rahula Rivas, Lisa Doak, Layla Hamru. Everyone. I didn't see any issues with it. Any corrections? No, good. So with that, I'd like to put forward a motion to approve the minutes from the May 9th, 2024 meeting.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion. So first on the agenda, we have. Sorry, my papers. We have a consultation for 109 The Strand. Is there anyone representing this property?
Is it an application or a consultation?
First, we're implementing something new. We're having so if members is representing this application and signing the voting for us.
We all sign?
Yes, please, if you're speaking, you're speaking. Sorry, the layout of this room is not really, it's yeah. Backward flipping over there.
Address is email address or?
That's okay, just your name and maybe the So I know you were here a month or two ago. Yeah, but if you wouldn't mind just walking us through the drawings and things that you have here and telling us about the design.
Sure, it's a new house. I did the house next door 3 years ago. Approved and built. This house is this exact same height, a little wider. Pretty much the same look.
If I might interrupt.
Sure.
Your name, are you the owner or the architect?
Murray Spencer, I'm the architect. The owners are
Yeah.
Kristen and Don both.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. So as I said, we're replicating basically a look of the house that's next door, exact same height, a little wider, framed differently, but the same look.
There's also in your packet, the email that we exchanged confirming a list of all the materials.
Because that was.
Okay, so that's.
Yeah,
That covers all this.
Yes,
The email.
So that's something we can
look at,
yeah.
go through. All of it in one place, so.
Well, have you looked at the list of materials or any red flags for us?
No, the questions I have were answered in a couple of emails, and just to make sure we're on the same page, I sent a recap email yesterday saying, are these all the materials? And it said yes, so. I think from the perspective, you can see it's, copper, got brick veneer, wood shutters, wood louvers. Wood simulated divided light window, which from new construction has been acceptable with simulated divided lights. With oval windows, cast stone, I think lintels, we're still doing that. Typical weathered wood shingles for the roof, wood fascia. Wood crown, wood trim, wood cornice, wood face on the dormers. Wood door, wood framing in the screen porch. Joists with cedar wood railings, so. From the perspective of all the materials, I think is sort of what we really want to see. I think I had just a couple of small, not small, I had a couple of questions where I thought would be best discussed in front of the whole group. Because, I mean, yes, the design, the facade, the elevations, everything else. The one question I had is, you're proposing a carport, and that's kind of pushing the whole structure further towards the water. How far do you extend from the neighboring property? I wasn't completely clear.
Yeah, side to side,
Yes,
I think it's 14 or 16 feet.
yeah, so pretty much that is the one thing where. Because of the proactive of the sections, of the elevation, just because it really gives a good sense of what's. So pretty much, if I were to look at your elevation, the adjacent property based on the. Site plan sort of ends at where your carport ends. And where this portion would sort of extend further. Yeah. The only question I had, because it makes for a very deep building. And it's the carport addition. I know that it gives you the benefit of having it. Top, but it does make that long mass fairly. The kind of conversations I've sometimes had, directly with the architects before. But I think it's also good to have an opportunity to have these conversations with HAC when we look at that, because it just stands out from that perspective sideways and is pretty massive. Plus, I don't know if there are any issues about carports and vehicular circulation to get to the carport, and I know that's not what we review. But my question would be, and I figured might as well have the conversation in a public forum like this. How wedded are you at having that great room that pushes everything out an extra 14 feet and then pushes the whole envelope an extra with the deck?
Yeah, it was definitely. Make sure that it doesn't. Way can you see it?
So is the primary intent that you really want to have the carport to put a vehicle, or is the primary intent that you really want to have the deeper great roof? And I know one of the others.
I would say yes,
Yeah.
but for the vehicle, just.
Right. So I mean, that would be my only question about the overall massing. I can understand the intent, but it also does make it very, very deep. And whenever we have conversations like in side consultations, I always say we can talk about it, but if it's important to you, obviously you could come to have. And with a feature that was this big, I figured that was probably why you really wanted it into it, rather than say lop it off. So I figured we might as well have this conversation in the form where you'd wind up being anyhow. If this was something that we sort of integrate. So are there any limitations in terms of this from the code perspective for the vehicle to go be parked in the back under a carport? Is there anything? I know we're not supposed to look at that, but preemptively.
They could put a carport back there that they couldn't get to unless they arrived by boat. They wanted to.
Yeah, see, because we did. And then the other question was, of course, the material on the driveway. Because that's also something typically, off-street parking is very precisely done, either with having like grass areas with just two sort of gravel bands where the car can go, things like that. So in that, I didn't see necessarily here, and I figured it's related to the bigger question I think the materials for a driveway are fairly easy and straightforward in the guidelines in terms of what is acceptable to minimize, so either bricks or I like the idea of grass plantings and just two bands that allow you to have the car to go around it. But that would only be the primary concern that I would have, is the depth of this whole building, which actually does protrude about 14 feet from the adjacent building, and it makes that lateral elevation very, very deep. I have no concerns about the details. I have no concerns about the materials. I have no concerns about, the blending in of the design with the adjacent. I do have just a concern about the overall massing.
I thought though, the driveway is in between the two
Mhm.
houses.
Correct.
So if the concern is, making it seem gigantic next to the house next to it, that's a significant distance between them, because the only concern there could be that house.
Yes,
It's already there.
well, it's just
Turn
on,
radius.
on both sides. I'm not looking at this from a turn radius perspective, although it was all valid concerns, and I'm assuming you did that because in terms of designing it, that's already been taken into account. And that's sort of not a hack purview. If it's there, it's the materiality. The other is just that there is a mass that's now, it's not so much about shading, it's just we do have a building that's just gonna be much, much deeper than what's on either side. And pretty much is, if I'm correct, looking at your site plan, the dwellings on either side are sort of pretty similar in depth, right? And it would just be yours that protrudes that. And it's 2 stories because it's an elevated deck. It's an elevated enclosed deck. So that was the one element, and I thought it would just be most productive to have the conversation once in front of them, rather than us have the conversation and say, well, it's not, then let's come and talk about it.
I think the owners next door sold a lot with the intention of someone building a house on it next door, and I don't think they'd have an objection. The husband's a builder. I think they're looking to have someone build on that lot. There's a vacant lot on either side.
Yeah, and they're also aware of that, when they share the plans with them and they're aware.
Right.
of
So-
the driveway.
I do want to note, and this is just procedure and what we
Yeah.
base things off of. We can't take into account what the neighbors think. We go strictly by by what we have in our design guidelines and standards. So, it's obviously very good that the neighbors that you're in agreement, because it's a small town, so we need to vote on it.
Oh, the neighbor?
Yeah.
Oh, because I have to come to a perspective. I bring up the neighbors not from a perspective of what one is doing to the neighbors and their views, because that's always evolved. It's more, if you look at the guidelines where we talk about scale and massing, and the buildings in Newcastle have a certain scale and massing, and in some areas it's more like the row house scaling, in others it's like deeper. But there's some where if you're looking, and because Newcastle is so open from both sides, you can perceive the waterfront from many areas, so there's that public right of way perception. It does stand out if you have a line, as you understand, a line of the back elevations that are a certain point, and suddenly the one that really protrudes from its dimensions. So it's more from that perspective. It's not that you're cutting the view shed of anybody else, it's more from the terms of maintaining the scale and massing.
Well, living in the town, I'm happy to see cars get off the street. There's more parking spaces for the rest of us, because parking is a problem in this town. Some streets more than others. So my view is the driveway is a very subjective thing and less objective, so.
Oh, I mean, the driveway for me is not an issue if one wants to have a large driveway and put the car in off-street parking. That, I'm not talking about the flat surface of the driveway, because I know that you could adjust the materials and that would work. I'm more talking about the fact to accommodate the parking, there's now a rear carport, which is now pushing everything an extra 14 feet deep, and that extra 14 feet, if there was just the carport potentially, but now there's the carport, and then there's the second story deck, enclosed porch. So that's where the whole mass of the structure is sticking out compared to the adjacent buildings. So
Many of the buildings in this town have this kind of mass on the back though, including my own, which has a gigantic addition on the back in the 70s. And there's nothing we can do about that, but you know, when I think about the houses I know best in town, Michael's house also has things built on the back, built on the back, built on the back. It's not atypical for houses here. It doesn't bother me.
Well, I mean, that's why we're having this conversation, because one, the standards were developed, there are things that were done in the past. Which the standards don't apply to things done in the past, or even if they were done like, 5 years ago or 6 years ago. The second part is architecture evolves organically. You have an addition, you have a secondary addition, you have a tertiary addition. So there's more of a scaling usually. The second is a bit lower, the third one gets to be a little bit lower. But the goal also of the guidelines is when you address new constructions, which this is something that's coming in as a new construction. The idea is try not to make it overwhelm the neighboring properties with the mass that it represents.
And the scaling that you're talking about in your two properties is not particularly visible from a public right of way versus
Right.
this scaling is what people will see if they're in the park or
Yeah.
on the waterfront.
You'll,
Well, not the park, but
But
Not from the
walking.
park.
but-
Well,
You're on
you
the
can say
water.
that, 107 is the deck.
I observed that there's no homeowner in this town who wishes to tear off his additions in order to reduce the scale of their home.
But you do have parts where people can sort of go further towards the water and then look right and left.
Actually,
And they can look at
not
that.
really, not in that
Well,
area.
I'm not saying right next to it, but there's an intersect where actually you can go down and look and see on either side. And again, I'm just saying these are the guidelines, these are the intent, that's why we're having this conversation in an open. And I think
You are planning to park off street, aren't you?
Yes.
I think that's a plus.
if the carport, I would hope, put their vehicle in it, yes, that is the intent. And presumably if you have more than one vehicle, then it's in the driveway. But yeah, I mean, that would,
With, you know, those three homes that are literally crammed into that space are gonna hide anything happening further back. You know, the other home that's being built on the other side is also a big house, stuffed onto a small property. So I don't, it didn't bother me, but I understand your argument, but in this case, it doesn't really show the benefit of getting the car off the road is significant, I would say.
but as again, I was saying the intent. And I'm only saying this so that factually everybody makes the decision. I'm not sort of.
I get it. I get it.
The intent is not to get the car off the road because your driveway would allow that without any problem. You could have two cars with the length of that driveway. The fact is, by having the area of a protected carport that's going laterally, it's increasing the size of the great room above it. It's increasing all the usable space. The great room is protruding that much further, and then your porch is also protruding that much further. Just sort of to be factual, if somebody would say, I want to put a driveway and I want these materials because I want to do off-street parking, that's good. Off-street, and I'm questioning your reasoning to do that. I'm just saying it opens up a different perspective in terms of recommendation that I made. And obviously the HAC members are the ones who will vote on the concept that you're presenting. Kevin, just sort of to answer that specific question.
But this is a consult, yes?
What's the?
Yeah, so a consultation is when you don't have all of the construction drawings and you want to make sure that before you have your final drawing, your final engineered, your contract, you're coming and saying, is this okay to do this versus why? And we've had some consultations like last time on one of us where it came with had plans and elevations, and that way the idea is we talk about, that's why I say we have the sections, you have the overall architectural drawing, you understand, and it's an opportunity to tell people, okay, this is not gonna pass muster. HAC would not approve this concept, these are the recommendations, and typically then I can work the advisory, not redesign, and always it can come back to HAC to actually approve or not. When it's a concept review, one of the options that's out there is that if at the consultation, there's enough information and you have a lot of information in your application, you should anyhow have a building certificate. If the commission approves the concept as presented in the consultation, and then the permit drawings, the seal drawings come for building permit to the city. And those documents, the plans, the elevations, everything matches what's here, you don't have to wait an extra month to come to HAC. I can say, yes, the design is exactly what was proposed, approved by HAC. It can proceed as a tier one and it gets approved, so you don't have to wait for the cycle. The idea was this was started to get people who went and did full blown, not just architectural, but engineering drawings and everything, and came to HAC for the building permit and were told. So the idea was try to put an intermediate step. And if it is approved, which is why we're having this conversation, because I knew the carport would be something that you probably want to keep. Then if it is approved as is, then that can proceed.
If this is to be treated as an application, that's a decision for the owners, with the architect. We can render a decision tonight.
We cannot turn this into a.
I'm asking whether or not that's,
Yeah, no, we can't. We can do this as a consultation. We can qualify the motion as we did the previous consultation, saying that when the building permits come, because you have all sorts of other things that you need to do before you actually get a building permit. But when those building, unless, you know, that's the Jeff kind of part, but the approval can be done to say if the building permits come with a design which is both in scale and massing, and that literally means if nothing changes, if the dormer moves or things like that, then would have to come back. But if everything is identical, then I can vouch that it is.
I mean, that is our goal and we'll be ready.
Yes, I mean,
Help them tonight, we'll
so-
be ready within days.
If this is approved tonight, we can submit probably tomorrow.
yeah, so and that, the idea was to not have you be held to, and also help, you know, if there's a redirect, to do a redirect soon. And everything else really meets the guidelines. The only redirect was the massing, and that was a conversation that I thought was best served having with the group this evening and see where people.
we want to make a decision on the massing today.
I mean, that would be the intent, yes.
And this, 2 months ago was not raised for a lot of people. So,
Yeah,
but
and
we are asking for that.
yeah, and because it was such a massing and and I saw the extent of the details and the impact housing design, I figured might as well have the take of the commission on this as opposed to sort of go through a loop around.
Okay, so I'm looking at it on Google Earth and, you basically have to walk into the mud to turn around and see any. So from a public perspective, there isn't any way to see it or be, engaged with it. All of these properties, their property line goes right down into the water, so no one's allowed to walk behind them. That will never happen. And there's actually been a lot of hubbub in the city about that. So, I understand the concern, Leland. Thank you for being here to keep us mindful, but, even with the additional, mass, there's still a fair amount of backyard too. I mean, everybody building on the Strand has to remember there's a river there that's pretty unruly, and deal with that, which I know there's thoughts about that, among some in that area now, but, I mean, I'm interested in what other people think, but when you look at it in Google Earth, you'd have to really work hard to even see it.
I'm content with their layout design.
The property that's being built at 105, I don't recall, that's exactly flush with the back of the existing property at 107.
I do seem to remember it's pretty close.
By the way, if you look 2 doors down, a lot of these buildings go back further, so it's not like other buildings here don't do that. They go back significantly.
I think also what 105 did is sort of like step down a little bit. I mean, this sort of, but I mean, the limitation here is you're kind of a little bit limited more to the step down because you have the carport, right? And so they're not gonna wanna have like a patio or something on top of the carport. And if you go, and again, because this would involve a lot of those changes, I figured this was a good opportunity for the commission to express its opinion now.
And the carport is open. Yes.
Not
Not all the way.
not the way through. It's this elevation. So when you look at it, this is the carport, that's under the deck.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
that's when I first saw it also, I had a bit, so you see, you have the
Got it.
carport here, there's a portion, if you look at the plans. You have a portion that's sort of behind it where it's a storage. So if you're looking at the elevation, at the plan, rather. This is where the carport is. So what we're seeing in the back, you're seeing the doors of the storage. That's what you're seeing.
So the carport is enclosed.
Yes, it's enclosed on, yes, on 3 sides, and then
So you wouldn't see the closet.
Right.
on the other side, you have a pass through under the deck
Okay.
and the above.
So I will say first, thank you for bearing with us. I know that this process can it seems like you're on file, and that's not the intention here. It's being in a historic district. We really try to examine all of these aspects really carefully because, you know, we want things to seem like it, you know, it's a new house, but we want it to fit in with the built environment, and we try to be really, you know, sensitive about that. I will say I did walk down there, and then I drove down there before I came here today, just to kind of see what the parking situation was at different times of the day, and I did notice that it was very congested now. I think the main sort of question I have with this is just the driveway material. Do you have any idea of what you're thinking for that?
We just tell us, we'll do it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we
We discussed it. Right,
Yeah.
we can do it.
There's that happens. Typically, we say, so like, you know, you might have like brick pavers when you try to on the sidewalk and then go into like grass with, you know, you can have permeable pavers in between or something of that type. So primarily,
Wraps through the center. and
Yeah.
Pavers down on
yeah,
the side.
yeah, because you know, for the wheels to fall, because you just don't want to, what we definitely is not acceptable is like concrete, asphalt, anything hard, yeah. So anything that kind of blends in is something that would be, and you can sort of play around what you're doing, the interconnection with the, where you can maybe transition from brick to then the grass. So it's sort of like you read the sidewalk going along, but then you have a sense that this is kind of, well, it's lawn, but with 2 strips in between, so you
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine, well, we wanted to work with whatever works with the neighbor, we hired our neighbor's architect just so we could.
Everyone's
Yeah, so if you
get the question out there, I'm content with that as a resolution.
And you can go to it, and you can link from the, if you go to City of Newcastle's, Historic Area Commission page, there's a link to the design standards, and in the streetscape section, it does give appropriate paving materials under streetscape. And it does say exactly what Layla's talking about, but it gives you kind of an idea of what is and what isn't accepted, you know, when you're trying to decide exactly what you are interested in.
Did we frame up a motion?
Yeah,
Setback. Or I guess the massing, I guess.
do you have anything you'd like to do?
When you walked back there, so I just walked by the property and I did not take into account walking into Bull Hill. Is there any, I mean, when you're in Bull Hill Park, did you walk there in?
I
the park
did, and
there?
that's another thing with why we pay more attention to new builds and things as well, because the structure doesn't exist yet, you know, it's easy to say now, oh, well, if you were looking from here, you can't see it, but we actually don't have any way of knowing that for certain that we will or won't be able to see it. So that's the tough part about it, is that, I suppose that from some, probably if you were on maybe like walking on the beach at Bull Hill, you might be able to see it.
Well, you can look at the Google Earth if you haven't looked at it, you know, it's,
Yeah.
you'd have to walk way down here. This is all, you know, most of it's parallel to
Right.
the end of the property,
Right.
and so, yeah. You know, the one area you could potentially walk and see it is wasteland. You know, it's just rocks and dirt at the beach. People don't walk on the beach there, it's not a desirable place.
I know.
I know, I mean, I know it's not under our purview, but
Yeah.
Jeff, it just pushing it back that extra 14 feet and plus the curve of the high water mark for moderate flooding, it pushes it just that much closer to it. Is that?
I haven't seen a lines and grades plan yet.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's all part of
They
it.
need an elevation certificate before they get going. It's even, it was easier for the house next door, but we'll go over that.
Okay.
I mean, we won't let them get hurt.
And we also won't, I mean, and that's a part of it, you'll do what needs to be done. It just won't raise any of the architectural elements or anything like that to raise things, and still have to admit it. And if something needs to be squared away, we can always have a conversation.
The only question, Layla, that I have before we move forward with any motion is because we're just kind of, I mean, the driveway, it is part of the streetscape, so that is something, you know, instead of just kind of leaving this up like,
No, we should be precise, the driveway should be
Exactly,
done
yeah.
with materials that meet the guidelines and standards and are approved during the review. And that those have to be indicated on the drawings when it's submitted for permitting.
So, no, does that have to be in the architectural plans or the site plan or both or just a site plan?
It has to be on one of the plans that's submitted for the building permit where it's documented as that. So it has to be clearly indicated. I mean, your architectural plans don't, you know, it's just the building and everything else. So if you have a site plan, then yes, it needs to be shown there.
Okay.
It needs to be clearly documented in what material.
That's what I'm used to, okay.
You're allowed to ask questions.
I mean, if I had known about the driveway, we had mentioned it, we could have, you know,
Yeah, well, I
we could
mean,
have had it just drawn and decided.
but I mean, that's something, since you're still providing the building permits.
Right.
That means that as long, it's not gonna make it become a tier 2 or has to come back.
Right.
This is just a condition where it can be, yeah.
Okay.
And make sure to be indicated, that's all. I think my primary thing was, let's make sure, since I thought the massing was too big, let's just have this conversation. If they're good with it, you know, if not.
Is there a sense of the commission? Because if we're gonna write a motion, we need to have a sense that we're in agreement.
I don't have a problem with the massing, especially since the elevated thing is like a see-through. I think that helps. Obviously, the verticality is that, but at least you could see through the bottom half of that. And like I said, like we were just talking about, just knowing what the driveway's gonna be.
Really,
I think the owner showed wisdom by bringing in an architect who has experience dealing with this cantankerous commission.
some of us may ping you later for yours. So, do we want to say that we have, I'm gonna try to write something here so that we can, so we'll make a motion to, approve what is this thing called?
so we're approving the design as it's presented. So as long as the drawings for the building permit match what has been presented to us today in the architectural renderings.
Yes, as long as all the architectural drawings,
Yeah,
of the exterior elevation, the plans, massing,
match what's been presented today and the materials and the design for the driveway align with what we have in the guidelines and standards. we can recommend this for a tier one approval of the building. But if anything changes, in terms of the design, it has to come back for the commission.
Regulations, material.
You have the face of the building back from the curb, that dimension exactly matching the next door neighbor.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And so you back, so you don't need to encroach on the right of way for steps or not?
Yes, we do. Just like they did.
Then you're gonna want the Historic Area Commission maybe to make a recommendation to city council to permit the encroachment.
In our. So we also, in that motion, we'll make a recommendation to city council to approve the encroachment of the front steps.
Which is consistent with the house next door, and they can't say that.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna go down on Mark.
Thank you for investing your money in our little.
Yes.
No problem. Pulse breathing.
It's nice little driveway allows also to have windows and light on that side.
Yeah.
Which is challenging in Newcastle.
Are there any other comments? Any comments from the public? on This application? Wonderful. So, like to move to make a motion to recommend this application for tier one approval, so long as the drawings for the building permit match what is in the architectural drawings in terms of massing, setback,
I would just say all design components.
all design components,
Elevations.
elevations, the driveway materials match the materials and designs presented in the guidelines and standards. And we would like to make a recommendation to the city council to approve the encroachment of the front steps, which is consistent with the house next door.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Make a recount.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Welcome to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Exactly.
So next we have. I cannot believe that we were doing it. Consider that in a trillion years. So we have 419 Delaware Street. Is there anyone here? You need me for name, friend? Yes, please.
Yes.
Well, to tell us a little bit about the work that you'd like to do.
Yeah, I've been here about a year and a half, going close to two. And the front facade really needs a little pickup. It's looking kind of drab. One of my major problems is my front door. It's got damage to it, and I get to lock my door from the outside maybe half the time, but I'm usually walking out the back. So one of the major things to do is to replace the front door. And then do some painting. I've got 2 screen doors going off my back screen and porch that are in pretty miserable shape. Parts are falling off. So I'd like to replace those all, yes.
Do you have any?
No, I mean, and thank you. This is like
Yeah,
one of the best
nice.
laid out step by step.
I followed the plan exactly.
You know, no alternative materials, the paint, the wood and all of that. No, and I think this was on the agenda. This could have typically been a tier 1, what's a pack meeting, which even before, we typically try to rotate people to tier 1 within less than 2 weeks, if it's an emergency within days. So, I have no issues with the materials. I think, you know, because the conversation that you had about doors really need to be replaced in the condition of the door, but if it's having operability issues, from a material perspective, this is fine. It's a very comprehensive application.
I did happen to walk by and look at the door, but I don't know anything about the lock side of it. I mean, it looked like it could be resuscitated if it wasn't, it looks though, based on what's in here.
Yeah,
it's
A lot of it is
compromised.
the inside where the lock is, and we had locks have come out because I was having trouble with the lock. And he basically told me that he was afraid to even try to replace the latch because he was afraid that because of the damage that was on the interior, that he may not be able to.
Consulted with a carpenter at all to inquire about repairing the damage to the door?
I have a contractor that I work with. They thought it was 50-50 whether or not they could keep the repair, so, I mean, I'm willing to do it, but my preference would be. I don't feel the safest with that door with the damage that's there. It would not take much for somebody to open it for me.
You'd be surprised what they can do, repair a door, if you have someone who specializes in doors, and not all carpenters will do doors. Because there is some skill.
Yes,
to
it's a
repair.
specialty.
It is.
Door restoration is a specialty. Just window restoration.
Will you indicate that, for interest in replacement materials are adequate?
Yeah, I mean, there are no alternate materials. All the materials are wood.
It's a solid mahogany
Yeah.
wood door.
Gonna be replaced with wood door, all the hardware sort of matching and all the rest.
Really, that, I mean,
And
I still want to preserve the look.
Save the hardware, not that it affects us, but you're gonna save the hardware and reuse it on the new door.
The hardware is my issue. I guess I can try to see if the locksmith can actually repair it once it's out. But at this point, we don't know what the shape the lock is until we can get it actually out of the door.
And do you even know how old it is? You know, sometimes when we took our door apart, it had pieces from 1930, maybe 1930. It wasn't antique, you know what I mean?
Those two are, they can be really, well, and actually by today's standards, you know, those would be considered historic when you think about going by the Secretary of the Interior standard by what's
And
considered.
they could be more antique looking.
That's,
Like
that
it's
is true.
fallen or whatever.
think of anything like the lock itself, which clearly can be replaced by something that would be more
Yes.
appropriate, but I mean, it might be different. We'll see what might be done with that. If anything, I would say, I know it's not on this application, but, is that a Ring camera that you have?
Yeah, I called down in regards to it. I had been a part of a stopping member of a home invasion, so I tend to be a little bit thing, but I have to remove it.
Well, no, it's just maybe let's see how. But they have to place it on the door. Sometimes they can place it to them on the side.
Well, I put it there just because the door trim, I didn't want to disrupt the door trim, but I could have the contractor put it to the side of the door.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe
So
put it on the
that-
side of the trim,
Yeah.
outside the trim, but at least, because you have a beautiful door.
Yeah,
And they're great, but they're really, They will mar the beautiful door that you made.
Yeah, I was not willing to try to drill into brick.
Mhm. You'd
And
have to
so-
ask if the contractor knows what he's doing, and then he could just tuck it in close to the trim, so then it kind of becomes a little bit more.
Yeah,
useful.
but I didn't want to
doing
ruin
that.
the, yeah, I really felt I would ruin the trim if I put it on there.
Discussions for your own reflection. These are mandates to you.
No, don't like the way that ring thing worked.
Or at some point, yeah, somebody, it's not like, I'm just to finish that thought, because a ring is not like locks and doors. It is something that's very intrusive and.
Yeah, it's
There are
it's there all the
Yes.
time, so it's a preferred feature.
If you wanna look at how, we solved it, 18 East Third, we did put it on the inside, on the lock side. So it's facing this way, and, it took some gyration, but we were able to drop we use electric, we got tired of using the, battery one, because every time the battery died, the whole thing had to be reprogrammed, it was a pain in the butt, so, we dropped a power line down to the bottom of this frame, which is hollow. And it's some gyration to do that, but you can get somebody who could do that, it's just a thought. But you could look at our house and see how we solved that. 18 East Third,
18 Easter, close.
around the corner from you. So it is possible to use it. It doesn't give a look out, but it does give like a 3/4 view. You see who's on the step, you see who's walking.
I want to know who's at the door. Is really the bottom line. I don't really care who's walking by.
And yeah, and then the contractor just let you know how it's sort of easier, because I would say much less intrusive, just tuck on brick as, you know, even if it's attached to it, then it's on the door, which is really a very clean zone.
My only thoughts with this, and I want, taking everything into consideration, because this is a beautiful replacement door. This is a very comprehensive application, and we really appreciate that. I just because we need to do our due diligence with this. Door is a character defining feature. And, again, we're in a historic district, so we have to discuss this part of it. If there is a way to repair this, that's typically the route that we should follow. And it's hard for us to make that determination, by pictures, whether the damage is beyond replacement. Does anyone else have any thoughts about this?
This is just my thought. We have to be careful about saying if it's possible to do things. Almost anything is possible if you had enough money and enough aggravation to throw up enough epoxy. It doesn't mean it comes out with an appearance or utility that the owner is interested in having. It also costs a lot of money to get a very bad result, so.
I would venture to say a mahogany door would be much more expensive than a repair on this door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily just, with door restoration, like they could even, they could do a Dutchman on this too. There's
Yeah, they could
a
do.
lot of things, and again, a skilled carpenter, I think.
What is it?
So that's where they cut out a damaged piece of wood. So on this is what's called the style of the door, these two vertical pieces. So they could cut out the damaged area and they could fit in a new piece of wood. And then they could just, they could put a new lock set in that, and that your door should be operable. That I've done that with my door. I know they did that with part of your door.
But not around the lock.
Yeah, not around the locks. They did, that was done on mine. And I think that's a very common repair.
And typically those repairs do either happen at the bottom, because that's where they get a lot of wear, or at the lock. because that also part
Yeah,
gets a
it
lot clearer.
goes. I was gonna say where it starts, where the wood is split, where everything is splitting away, probably is about that.
And I'm also bringing this up not to be,
No,
not to
I'm
push
not.
it, but that is something that we talk about a lot with, when it comes to historic buildings and making repairs. It's like, well, it's just, it's too expensive. And, home ownership, whether you're in a historic building, non-historic building, there are just things that you have to do and they're expensive. But I bring this up just because I think we don't really, we need to discuss that more, because there are times when these repairs are more cost effective than replacing the whole door.
And I also think you bring it up because it's appropriate, because the guidelines are very specific that when you are doing replacement,
Right,
it has to justify why that's needed, which is why you did a very comprehensive, you really followed. I mean, it could be like textbook, what should be done when somebody's submitting an application. So that's where it's coming from that perspective. It is part of HAC's purview to be able to make, like, we need a justification if everything needs to be replaced and why. So, that's just on background.
And we just had a representative come from, the,
So it's
What was her name? I can't
her
remember.
name is Kara Briggs. It's the state, the Historic Preservation Tax Program. And, you can actually, it's in the back of the guidelines, in the references section, where is it? So it's, under the state of Delaware, it's the second item, Delaware Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program. So for repairs like this, it's a minimum of $5,000, which, that's not hard to.
because it'll be comprehensive with all the board, the storm, everything you're doing, be one project.
It's 30%
Yeah.
tax credit that you have, and that's a really excellent incentive for preservation. And if you haven't looked at that, I would absolutely recommend getting in touch with them, because that could be, that's an option to.
Well, and that's
Exciting aluminum.
that's actually why I was bringing it up, is because she said to please reach out to her, because we can't make recommendations as an arm of the city. So you can reach out to her, and she maintains a list of qualified contractors for historic restoration. She still recommends that you vet that. And ask for references and do your own due diligence, but she does maintain a list and she's permitted to share that with you.
Now, one cautionary, if you want to do that, what I would say, and is reaching out sooner, rather before you do it, before you purchase anything or decide and
Oh,
have
I
a
have
conversation.
not purchased anything waiting for approval.
Because what they have done, the change when they updated, before you could actually retroactively get tax credit for the work that's been done. Now, no, you have to actually, but the good thing is being in the historic district, your part one is very easy.
How much time does it take to get a credit? What is the credit form of the credit? Is it a check or is it a tax? credit?
It's a tax credit, and if you have,
So you don't enjoy the benefit until the next tax year.
no, you have 10 years to use it,
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
and
a-
you can, and you can use it over multiple
Yeah.
years. And you can also, if you get it once, then you can also actually, a second round, if you're doing other work, and also reapply for it
Yeah.
after 2 years.
Yeah, after
So-
24 months, you can reapply,
So
so.
if you do work now, if you're gonna plan to work 2 years from now, you can apply again, and
10 years worth of work.
so I mean, but find out about that, because if you plan it and then have conversations, even if you're doing taxes with your tax accountant, it actually winds up being a pretty good, a pretty good source and very helpful. And the system is pretty much streamlined. And as I said, the whole part, which is getting certified as historic, that's done because you're contributing in the historic district. So that's taken care of. You just have to go into part two, and part two, they're very simple. They explain you how to do it. It's like, this is what I want to do. And then when you're done, this is what I did. And pictures, and then the process goes through.
Well, let's be careful. Not everyone who lives in this town can wait a year to get their money.
No, we're just talking about.
You have to get it.
Every avenue, every solution that makes you, your door, and it's your money.
Yeah, I realize that, and I've had some unexpected, expenses with roofing leaking into my house and having to get repairs done inside the house, so.
What I understand is we have a woman here who has a door that gives her trouble. She's not sure that she has the security she should have in her home. Security is number one.
So I would also say, like, having dealt with an issue, you can install a deadbolt as a temporary solution. We're discussing, this is not subjective as to what each one of us wants. We are following guidelines that we have to follow because we are in a historic district, and it's not,
She has proposed a solution that meets requirements.
But does it?
it actually doesn't.
It's worth taking a little bit of effort to try to understand.
If I
Yeah.
can, find somebody that is restoration, have them come out and look at it, I mean, I'm more than willing to do that.
Might be cheaper.
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I think the front of the house is really needs to be updated and refreshed.
Yep.
So the door was a big part of it, if it can be fixed, but I prefer to be able to lock my door from the outside every once in a while.
And it could take you months to wait on a custom built wood door, in which case a carpenter.
They said 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, well, but.
COVID really put a bump in all that stuff, so it is getting better.
Yeah, it's getting better, yeah.
I think they're gonna be, the two aspects here is they're making a decision today about which direction the commission's gonna go about this door. But the other, because you're talking about a plan of wanting to do things, I would strongly recommend, I mean, the guidelines are there, you reach out to Marika, she'll reach out to me, I can give you the contact information to Kara Briggs. Because the expenditure, you will do it anyhow. Whether, whether it's a door, whether it's more siding, anything that you're gonna do, that money has to go out. So if it's gonna go out and there's an option by following a couple steps
Oh, yeah.
that you get that in return, it's not related to this application. I think that's part of the educational component.
Right.
This is something where the money is going out, it's going out one way or the other. So it would be smart every 2 years to say, well, at least I can have this come back.
Does that also include interior room?
Yes.
It does,
It,
yes.
it
Because
can
that's
include
where
some
it is.
It is, and it's not, like remodeling an entire kitchen, like say you had a butler's pantry that was original. to the
It's
house.
connected more to the significance. So I need to upgrade my bathrooms, not necessarily. But I have this, but I'm just throwing this out there, this fireplace and all this wood trim, and I
I'd
need to
like
fix
get the
that.
Wood, back to wood,
Or
and plastic
yes.
side layers of
Yes,
lead paint, I'd like to get
Exactly.
the windows restored.
those,
Yeah.
yes.
That too.
And that's something that we can. And if ever you go that route and you're just wanting to understand, I'm more than happy to provide some feedback, hey, vouch this versus that
Yeah,
way.
with, I will say with windows, and this isn't recommending, anyone, but there is, a nonprofit called the Window Preservation. Going to their website because they have a lot of resources there that you could use to, probably find someone that can
It'd be nice if they opened and to let air in.
We all have the same problems.
You know, and that was all wood. I mean, just beautiful, so I would like to do that, and then when I can't get up the stairs anymore, sell it.
So, I mean, there's other elements to this application that I don't really have a problem with, the screen doors on the back that you want replaced. The storm door on the front doesn't pose any issue. I don't know whether you would want to install a storm door before you see what you're gonna do with the front door. I don't know that that would have any bearing on what front door you get,
I
so.
don't know if they have to take it or not.
Right.
Yeah. I'm assuming they might have to take it off too.
Yes.
Right.
You might be able to get an answer very quickly. Door repair, so, look into it. Maybe we could word the motion so that she can look into it, and if it won't work, then just bring it back to tier 1 and then you decide, or.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I've done this like somewhere else. If you have somebody coming and you know when, shoot me an email, I can meet with them. Because when you do this exercise, the response that has to come back if we're following this process. It's not like, oh, it's more expensive. It's more having a conversation with him saying, you know, if I need to fix this, I would need to replace 50%. And I'd have to pull everything apart and then I can technically vouch because I mean no disrespect or no, you know, intent, but that way at least there'd be a level of comfort saying, okay, we had a technical conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
And we said whether we can or versus we can't. With the 5-strand window roller, it's like, oh yeah, no, those windows are fine. And they'd have to replace everything else anyhow. So if that helps, I'm more than happy to give you my card if you want and just ping me and we can. The chance to come to beautiful Eastland. Yeah. Yeah, that might help us move things forward. And meanwhile, if you shoot me an email, I will send you the link. I mean, you'll find it on the website, but I'll send you the contact information of Karen Briggs. And she's very responsive with individuals reach out.
That'd be great, thank you.
So, are there any other comments, thoughts from?
Do you have a timeline on this when you'd like to have it finished?
That's impossible. I mean, especially with the tourists coming in town, I mean, it would just be nice to have a fresh facade, so even if the door can't get repaired, at least if I can get the shutters painted and window boxes painted and those type of things, then at least it looks nicer and fresher than what it does right now.
So we can approve the rest of the elements of her application and
Yeah.
just pending the door situation.
Which we run quickly, really.
And I'm not, for the next 2 weeks. Something you can set up.
Let's go and look at the resources that are out there.
And if for some strange reason she doesn't come back with recommendations, you can always Google door restoration near me and you'll start to see names. And then again, vet them and make sure they do actual historic door restoration versus just, you know.
Like all of the big manufacturers, but once you go down, you know, a few clicks, you'll find some.
Once you get past all the Anderson.
Yeah,
replacements.
If they're looking to read the details, like, it's 2 years. So this was great. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I know it takes.
Well, I'll make sure I have everything.
So we really appreciate the application. It was very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
I did come by to look at your door and then I saw the Ring camera and I'm like, I don't want her to think it's creepy. Oh. Please look at it.
Attention, I only pay attention to people that are
Standing there.
not talking. Because if you looked at every single thing walking by, I would be spending half my day there, so I don't even have the alarm stuff.
So we can approve everything else on the
Yeah.
Yes,
application.
so. I'd like to make a motion to approve, the installation of the 2 screen doors on the porch. And those materials are all, those are all approved materials.
Yep.
You want to approve the storm stuff?
Yes, the storm door. Or I guess this is the screen door for the front door.
There's a storm door for the front and then 2 screen doors for the screen porch. And the screen doors are the ones that are falling apart.
Yeah.
They just look really bad.
I don't know that you need our approval to repaint
No, painting
the shutters and the window and door
I
trim.
don't find anything about paint color.
Yeah, there's, yeah,
I
because,
had to put it in there.
no, it's appreciated, but that's just because it's hard so to taste change and that's easy.
So the motion is for the approval of the installation of 2 screen doors on the porch and a storm door for the front door. As long as all of the materials, you know, everything aligns with the materials that are in this application. And also after you reach out to, some carpenters to inquire about the repair of the front door, we can make a motion for that, whatever happens with that to be approved as a tier one. And if anything changes, in terms of material design, for this next, so you can come back and we'll need to review the application again.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you. Very welcome.
Thank you.
so much. It's 4 West Fourth Street. Hello.
Hello.
So be gentle.
It's all right.
I'm prepared to understand all that.
You provided many pictures.
Let's take the motion.
Okay. I have a feeling we'll do a lot of writing, so you're right if I sit down and talk, or stand, or happy to stand, but I have a feeling we're gonna be rifling through some notes here.
So you are Justin Meyer.
I'm not. Justin's the owner of the property. My son is his partner and I oversee the crews. Neither could be here, so.
Would you mind letting us know?
I'm
your
lucky.
name?
Thursday
But
night.
you're authorized to speak for him?
No, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
So just as a matter of, well, first, before we get started, we did get the application, but there was no information on the work that was gonna be done. So it was just originally, and normally, and I just, because we're taking this opportunity to talk about the process,
that's fine.
and normally applications are supposed to be complete in the 7-10 days, an opportunity to review and come back and do all that other stuff. And when this came, there was a description of the work, but there was no indication on material, what are you using, where, how, when, and that's, I'm the one who reached out to Marika, I'm like, can't review this, I can't review this, nobody can find me, don't know what you're doing. And I said, if there are other questions, that's why we're always here, Marika and I, just to sort of, what are the guidelines to say review. So this was emailed a couple of days ago when we had this conversation, so.
Because I had
that's-
originally just said, let's just do a consult.
Yeah, and
And then she kind of gave me a better idea and we threw it together.
because even for a consult, we have to understand what you're consulting on.
I mean, I get it.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us,
We purchased 64 West Fourth Street. We plan on doing a complete interior rehab to it. Outside, what we want to do is, you should have some pictures of the house. It's got an odd siding on it. Take the siding off the front. Underneath that is existing shiplap. We feel like we can repair that. So, but we haven't taken the whole front off because I didn't want to do anything until I met with you guys. The alleyway, if you see pictures, you have an alleyway going down and that same siding is on the alleyway. Again, we opened up a small section, there's shiplap under there. So we plan on opening that up. Then if you go towards the very back of the house goes like this, then goes like this. That siding's here. And then it goes back this way, and this is kind of the neighbor's stuff, like that's his building. So we plan on taking that off, and we actually did take a section of it because we weren't sure what was underneath it and painted it just to see kind of what's it look like if we painted the alleyway part. And it, you know, we feel like it's acceptable, but we would rather do shiplap. So we understand, it's my understanding, you want to make sure the front of the house looks, you know, like it's supposed to be, so.
The front of the alley.
on the alley.
And yeah, anything, because anything that's visible, and you know, when you look down the alley, you can sort of see that.
No problem. As far as your windows are concerned, you've got all wood windows throughout. We can repair them. They're not in very good shape. We would like to replace, what we would like to do is replace the front windows. And if we could use an alternative window down the alleyway in the back, you know, we appreciate that, your approval. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come in and try to get a feel for that and then move on from that. As far as your roof, the roof is in bad condition, so we want to replace the roof. And we have some roofing materials that were present in there. That needs to be changed. I'm happy to change it. And your front door, I would like to save it. It's an all glass door with panes. It's probably got a dozen panes in it. You know, it's got the smaller panes. But if we couldn't repair that, and I just saw, you know, how you feel about doors, so, you know, we can repair that. But we would go with one of your recommended quarter windows, half windows, whatever that would be. On the back of the house, there is a door that is extremely damaged. That leads to the kitchen. We would like to replace that with your half window. Happy to do a wood door or whatever you want to do there. Pretty much the outside.
What are you thinking of doing with this porch here?
Repair. So on those windows currently, you have like a storm window on there. Is that allowed when you redo these, or does it have to be just a wood?
So some windows are allowed, but it looks like these might be raw aluminum. So if we do allow aluminum storm windows, but they need to be painted. I would say just with the windows, you know, when you apply for the historic review certificate, building permit, just some condition photos or even maybe a site assessment too, because again, I realized the condition of this house, like I did walk by and I could see the clappers underneath poking through, and that was very exciting to see, like that.
Okay.
You know, I think most people would be very,
Yeah.
very happy to see, you know, to see the original siding versus this.
Well, if somebody wouldn't mind stopping by, I'm happy to go over the windows, but the windows are a big deal. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, I can certainly give you my contact information. I can certainly stop by and look at the windows
Yep.
and, but I typically after that, so I just do a quick documentation. I take pictures. I share, share with you. Yeah. The one thing that I will say, vinyl windows are no historic district, even if you don't see them. Yes, and then obviously not mine. The other, you know, and we can have, I mean, we can have that conversation, you know, but yes. Pod windows, or I mean, and look at the guidelines, they'll sort of give you what's
Yeah, we have
there.
a whole window section
Yeah.
here. This front door, I'd say is likely, I believe this building is what, 1860s, I think.
1865.
Yeah, there were two dates that I saw. I saw 1900 on, you know, one thing I looked at, and then I think the historic buildings database that I listed as 1860s. I would say that this door likely is not the original front door. But that doesn't mean that. That's,
So could we, want to follow what you guys want to do. Tell me and
I mean, it's hard, it's hard to kind of see the door just because the storm door is on there. I don't know that. So I was just more making a comment, but I don't think.
You know how much to work with this structure.
Well, you
Probably a
know,
lot to
yeah,
look
you
at.
know, I mean, you found the original siding underneath. You
No, that,
I know listen, we're gonna resell the house. And for resale, I would think somebody would want a more solid door than a glass door that you could come and see everything that's going on. I would prefer a more solid door, which is like what's around the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Which for that, and you could discuss that with Layla, it would be a door that would be consistent with the period of significance of the building, yeah.
Potentially with some lights in it, things like that, yeah.
Since,
Yep.
just as a side note, just since we were talking about it, I don't know, you'd have to talk to, Kara Briggs about it, but I do know that she deals with the federal tax credits as well.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, that,
Tax credit.
For the state tax credits, that is for, private homeowners. And nonprofits, I think, but for income generating properties, that's where you can take advantage of the federal. Sort of credit. So there's,
there's some federal, there's some state taxes, they just have different limitations, and they apply to different categories. That's so I'll.
I let my daughter fill that stuff out.
And again, the tier one is, the part one is fairly straightforward because you're in the district, you'll still have, it's a speed part. And make sure that if you're gonna apply for it, make sure to get everything in before you actually start spending money. And you'll have to put quotes because that's the amount. And then sometimes, I mean, you're obviously planning on turning around, if not, if you face it, then you pay it back after years. Yeah. But if you're planning on reselling it, then you probably have it at you one time.
that's the one stipulation is they have to document conditions and things prior to the work being done. So.
And they used to accept that retroactively you could justify, but that's.
Do you have a Ron Bukovic tree in front of your house?
Pardon?
The tree that's in front is planted by Mr. Tree in our city who buys all these trees basically himself, except like plants them.
I got you. It's fairly new.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say just because of the extent of what's being done, and again, so this is not, it's not a historic review certificate, it's more of a consultation. I would just say because of the scale of the improvements, I would recommend that once everything is pulled together, it would be a good package to come back to HAC. Because normally if things meet, it's okay to do a tier one, but here, there's gonna be so much transforming it. And so if we can converse like in the next few weeks. That means you'd be able to be ready for an actual application,
Right.
which has to be in 10 days with everything before the HAC date. That's it, yeah. So, and if you're gonna go after the tax credit, then obviously time is not as much of the essence. Because they do have a 30-day.
We can see the totality. Change a door, one window and a shutter. Get to see the whole image you have, and obviously you want something consistent with the work town. That's why you bought here. And that's why the next owner will buy here as well. But you also want something, some commercial that can appeal to it.
So when you say physically be able to see.
Yeah, if you can do some kind of rendering or something.
Yeah.
Lap siding, for example. Beautiful, right? Now be careful, you know how much lap siding you have to actually replace.
Well, that's.
One thing leads to another.
Well, when I Google mapped this property, it actually still showed the adjacent property with that same asphalt shingling on the side of it. So they must have removed it and had the original underneath of it as well.
Yeah, they're painting it.
Yeah.
But that's been shiplap since we bought this property.
Yeah, I didn't make note of what date the Google.
Am I allowed to take off the siding that's on there now?
And that's something,
Issue.
if it's permittable, then you'd have to know what's gonna be done to it after. I mean, I can't.
Shiplap. I mean, it's.
Well, this is a chicken and egg problem. You need to get it off to understand what the extent of your.
Exactly.
You're
problem
talking about
is.
the asphalt
To-
shingle.
Yes.
What's your view on that?
Simple tier one to remove non-compliant,
Material, yeah.
those things.
Well, I mean, if you remove the fenestration, then you just have to just board it up while you're doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, if it,
But if you
Sometimes it
still
just
have, if you
falls
wanna remove
apart.
the ship, it's still be a build, it's still permit, but that can go as a tier one. It wouldn't have to come to the whole house.
Right.
It'll be, you know.
Well, he's not removing the shiplap, he's just removing the.
No, no, they
outside.
They asked.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's understandable.
I think the only thing that I'd say is just obviously if you start finding things that are horrific and then we get up into a position like, well, that has to be an urgent repair, something like that. But yeah, I mean, a demolition like that can go as a tier one because the
I
materials.
think it's pretty solid, I mean. Feeling any holes or anything. All right, so let me ask another question. Can I do a tier, what we would like to do is to structurally, you know, we're demoing the inside now. We would love to be able to do work on the roof, is that,
It's a tier one. A re-roofing would be a tier one.
okay?
Unless you're
Okay, perfect.
changing, you know,
Not
the,
changing the profile.
You are talking about a chimney, although.
Yes.
Significant chimney.
Yes.
It's a square.
So there's two chimneys. There's one that's red brick. I'm gonna try to sell you guys now. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's on the alleyway. We have another one that serves no purpose on the back of the house. It's leaning like this. It's about this high, that wide. It has no purpose. We would like to take that down if we could. And it is the back of the house. Is there a picture? Did I put a picture in there?
Yeah, here it is.
My daughter put all this together. So. It should have my chicken scratch on it. Yep, there it is. Right there.
Yep, on pages 2 and 5 here.
So you'll see the nice, this is the nice one. This is the one on the back of the building. So you can't see it from the street. This one just, this is just at the top of the roof. If you go look at it, well, you can kind of see how it's leaning. It's bad.
Are there fireplaces underneath it?
No, there's underneath this one,
That's one of the bad
the
ones.
bad one.
Is it that
Underneath the
way?
bad one is, it's just like a flues there, but it's not being used. It's not being used. It's an old water heater. An old water heater, right, and now it's not going there. That in the basement. This large one,
And I think it's when you go to the back. Let's talk about that one versus
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
large,
Yeah.
nothing inside.
Right.
There's an old heating furnace, but it's back, so if your chimney's here, the old heating furnace is back there. There's nothing running to it, so I don't know, but it's nice, and it's in great shape. Yeah.
So you wanna keep it cosmetics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's solid, it's rock solid.
I say, about this chimney, so this portion, of West Fourth Street is significant to, an African-American community that was, that had homes on East and West Fourth Street. I would just say from as a, with interest in architectural history here, I understand if this is compromised, but just, I mean, it may not look like it's leading to anything now, but it would, if it's deemed that it needs to be removed, at least document, have documentation of its existence because,
It's this one, right? So
Yeah,
you're,
she is. It is.
yeah, so I mean, it was clearly, leading.
That's your second floor, it's 2-bedroom property, low ceiling. That's your back bedroom. So we would want to remove that on the interior. So therefore it makes the bedroom,
Bigger.
well, it's a clean wall.
but I'm just commenting on this from, a preservation perspective is that, things like this they give us clues as to how things were used in the houses and to the house's history.
what qualifies?
Going down the front
Qualifies
hall, isn't it?
documentation?
Yeah, it goes into the kitchen.
Yeah.
So underneath this room is your kitchen, and underneath this room, there's a hot water heater, and it's connected up to that.
The level of documentation that she's speaking to is photograph or a series of photographs.
And where would those go, Tara?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the Historical Society or even, you know, Chad, yeah, I don't know what the timeline is on this project, but, and if, we can talk about this too, but Vernacular Architecture Forum, which is, it's an academic group, they're having their 2025 conference in Delaware in May, so they'll be coming to Newcastle to do a tour, and obviously this is what we would classify as vernacular architecture, but I'm talking to two professors at the University of Delaware right now, and if you're interested, they might even be able to come by and look at the house and tell you a little more about it.
I have no problems with it. We're looking to have it up for sale by mid to end of August.
Okay, well then, you know, they
So,
might,
I'm just being upfront. with
they
you.
might be able to do that before then.
But remember,
But
that's up for sale, all the work's been done, so.
Right.
If you're going at that timeline, and if you even think you're gonna wanna pursue the tax credit, then you better get on that really fast. It was 30 and 30.
So getting back to this chimney and this society, who takes care of all that? Who gets that, who calls them? And I'm happy to, I'll even give them the lockbox to the house and they can photograph whatever it is they need to photograph. Or is that something that Roland and I can do, or does it have to be?
I think you can extend an invitation to them. No, they-
We need to help him with information on how to do that.
Yeah, I'm not,
we can send you.
I don't think that you get you hung up on someone's travel plans through the summer, back until October.
If not, I can easily tell you kind of what kind of photographic documentation one would want.
what we can do is I can have my daughter there. She's.
You give them a decision on the chimney,
Well,
assuming that you will make efforts to document it.
well, we're not taking any action right now. It's just a consultation. We're just discussing what options of what can be done and assessing, you know, conditions based on the information that we have here.
In order for us to move forward on the interior, I would have to remove that part of the chimney on the
Well, I
interior.
mean, are you removing the chimney because the chimney's in poor condition at the top, or,
Yeah,
or are you removing it because it's convenient for the interior?
So,
I'm being candid, we're just being.
For the interior, there's no use of it. It's not being used. And then the structure above is, you know, not real nice.
It's compromised.
It's gonna fall down.
And it has to be captive coated if you water
yeah,
penetrating
we
the house.
can't really see from there.
Well, when we get together with the windows, I could just take a poster. I mean, I'm not gonna make any assumptions, but we'll just take a look at it. You're working with a mason, presumably, or you've been working with a mason,
Or
or like any repair to the chimneys or anything like that, who's gonna take it?
the chimneys are fine. If you look at the large one, the pointing is fine. There's no need for that. There is a proposal and, you currently have, you know, a real bad damaged concrete alleyway. So I just assumed, you know, you fix that and redo it. And I don't- How to do that?
You can't put concrete.
So that's something, again, the streetscape, yeah, the streetscape is something that,
Are you a brick pal?
Pardon?
Are you a brick pal? So, yeah, everybody will accept that. You could probably even find old bricks.
We have some, there's some stacked up.
Chimney.
Yeah.
Look at some other acceptable walkways, or I could just, I guess, look at,
Permeate pavers are also, I mean, if you wanna go down that way. Gravel, some types of gravel for not,
Yeah.
No,
I think
it specifically says
place.
I mean, it's between alleyway and drive. You know, people kind of put different things, but. Perhaps it's permanent.
Against the neighbor's house? Or, isn't that alley up against the neighbor's house?
No. No, not up against his house, he has an alley. With a fence going down,
Yeah, there depends on
and
the.
then there's, probably another 4 feet this side.
Yeah, I think so.
Could be grassed and then like
Oh, yeah.
those stone pavers, you know, like
Yeah.
walkable,
Yes,
okay,
that would be fine.
just not concrete.
I create or.
Cadam's like a negative.
Jeff just asked this question, but is the alleyway, is this a public? Is this the public right of way or is this on the? Okay, it's right.
So we have a small alley. You're standing at the door, you go to your right, see a little gate that you can open up and walk out of the house. That's our alleyway. On the opposite side of the gate is the other gentleman's. To his backyard.
Do we want to give any guidance on the interior? Because I know when we did our interiors, there was a discussion about how it was going to be laid out and things like that.
We're not supposed to give guidance on the interior. We only give guidance on the interior we should only give guidance on the interior when it can potentially impact the exterior. Like if you change the plan this way, you can reduce, you know, the kind of the conversation that I had with Will before they came back with the revised. Like, oh, that's gonna be too deep. You're not gonna have lights and let's do this. But if not, no, we're not. That's not our purview.
Right.
And it looks like a cool project, but it's not purview to us.
No, we're not changing any of
Mhm.
it.
Are you going to try to save the floor? Or are you going to put in the floor in? Yeah, because some of these, like the house we have, the floor is original to 1798. It has its issues, but it was cool.
It has a
This
personality.
didn't have.
You probably have some spongy spots.
Yeah, thank you for resuscitating a house that.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like it. It's gonna be really, really nice. So we're excited. It's our first historic.
You providing mortgages?
No, I don't do that. We don't do that.
That would help.
I'm
We're
also,
gonna see what type of markets for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, so.
oh, you
with
might
small
find,
ceilings.
they're selling very
Yeah.
good right now. They really,
The poor person from California, right? Yeah.
So my subs are, from Mexico and they walked in there and go, oh, this house. This is
Yeah.
great. Like the water views. It's a cool little town. I gotta tell you, I gotta get in there. Grab the wife and have some beers at dinner. It's very cool.
Jessup Spears.
Yeah.
Nora Lee's, we have Oaxaca.
Yep.
We have, you can always find me at. Oh, Zolli's is good.
I know you opened it.
Why don't you come over? We'll go there after this.
Tried to get it done.
Maybe that's.
Well, he's, you know, he's really one. Well,
There's a niche.
behind a bunch of rentals.
Sorry about that.
You do all.
We'll pitch something to you, Dee.
Would they get 2, 3, 4,000 for a rental?
I think it's 1,300 for a 1-bedroom. Not-
Any other questions that anyone in the commission has? Do you have any questions?
So get like a tier 1 to take off, like my understanding, you know, I could talk to Jeff or whomever to start to take off the asphalt siding.
Yep, and
Cool.
to, another one for the roof.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
And just,
And if you're gonna do the roof, we can have a conversation about when I meet you there to look at the windows, just to look at the condition of the chimney,
Yep.
because.
All of it then.
Yeah, I do.
This is good.
Porch is just gonna be.
Skewed based upon what everybody else wants.
If we jumped in and just started knocking things down, out, and they find they get framed for years. You're doing it the right.
We know the.
Porch, that's also tier 1, but I think if you're gonna do all the work on the side and everything like that, you probably would wanna do the porch. Which the after, not before, I think it's just a sequencing. But yeah, if you come to do just the porch, I think that would be fine. If when we start talking more about, well, this is all the windows and so we're replacing back.
That's really what we
Mhm.
need help with, and if we have to keep the window, we would love
Yeah.
to replace them.
Yeah.
But we may have to keep some.
Yeah, and then we'll look at that, and then if, you know, and again, that's the kind of thing, it's like, well, you're keeping some and repairing them, and the others are broken materials, but they're really damaged, and those are the ones, and that's something that can move forward without having to do the whole return. So we'll just kind of see the scale of what you need to do after we talk, and based on that, we can break it into different pieces.
Crazy.
Yes, they are.
Well, the
Crazy price.
the conversation I had about one building is I said, listen, these windows look really good. The issue really seems to be sort of the framing and some of the exterior. I said, you're gonna put new windows, you're gonna have to redo that anyhow. You're gonna have to take them out.
Yeah.
So if you're taking that reframing, but instead of getting new windows, then repair these, they're already there.
Way
Some of them can.
cheaper.
You would actually, you know, for having done this, like having experience doing this, like I've worked, I'm working under starting.
She actively does it with her.
And I've actually worked on, this is not my profession, I do it for fun. I've actually worked on other window.
Yeah.
Preservation projects, and you'd be surprised.
And have you worked on the ones like, some can even, if they're wide enough, you can reroute them and put some thin IG in them. So you get the pumps.
There's yeah, I've milled, you know, for others, because they're all mortise and tenon, you can literally just take out one of the pins, you can, you know, mill new pieces, you know, new styles, new rails. It's,
You could advertise.
no, I'm always happy to, you know, as a private citizen recommend.
There's a person doing next door, and she seems to be doing a nice job, and I talked to her about the windows, and she thought she could clean them. So, you know, it's an option. I said, sure, let me meet with you guys, see what's going on.
That old growth wood really is quite resilient.
And you're not gonna live there, but it'll last longer than the new wood windows you'll put in, and it'll be cheaper.
Well, and I also, I'm doing one up in Haverford, and I met with a realtor up there, and stuff that I thought was quirky, she goes, no, this is what's gonna sell this house. Don't do this, cause I'm more, we flip homes, you like open floor plans, it's, you know, we want the newer style, but there's a niche for this, and
There's very much a niche one, yeah.
yeah, and so therefore it doesn't have to be perfect. I want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also when you're in Newcastle, the niche market that you're hitting is they get it not just on the interior, but on the exterior.
Right,
And that's kind
right.
of the
They're
whole-
cool with that. If there's
Yeah.
a couple blemishes. and we'll-
Yeah,
You know,
you know.
where I'm,
Just make up a dramatic story about why there's a blemish.
oh, I will. I'll come.
I've
I'm gonna come up to Jessup's and grab a couple beers and sit around with everybody.
Lafayette was
Come
here.
up with I gotta get a pirate.
Is the electrical and the plumbing and the heating, do you have anything to work with on the inside that you can save?
Jeff's crying.
Been all over that place.
It's a,
Nothing, I was
There's
kind of
nothing.
afraid that chimney was coming down to the basement.
yeah.
Part of the roof, so we gotta do something.
There's a salvage place in Salem, that if you're looking for pieces that have an old look for certain applications, you might just trawl through there. It's called Royal Port Antiques in Salem, New Jersey. It's really, really fun anyway, just to go there if you like building stuff.
Some great.
But there are
Where is it?
doors there too. If you
Salem,
need
New Jersey.
interior
Salem, New Jersey,
doors.
across the
If
road.
you want interior doors and you're
You gotta
willing to
do that.
refinish them, they're very cheap.
Where you're ready.
Cabinetry, all kinds of cool stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my daughter will go there, cause she was kind of asking about that.
Oh, she would love
Get
it.
some little niche things.
Your daughter's been mentioned several times. Is she getting a piece of the deal on it?
Yeah, so she would have been here tonight, and she's a much better version of me, but she has believe it or not, a wedding on Father's Day, and I guess tonight is the rehearsal, and she's like, I can't come. I would have just pushed her right up there. So your drawings, it's funny, because my partner Justin knows how to do drawings, so we met there, and I brought her, we got our pencil and paper out. She goes, you're gonna make me do all this, aren't you? I said, oh, yeah. 10 minutes later, I'm like, well, I gotta go. I'll see you later. And she drew it all out. So she did the drawings.
I have to say, I'm pleased at your plan to fix it and sell it as opposed to rent it. There's too many rentals in the town and that's not, I personally believe it's not good for the town, so thank you for doing the, it's a duty, I think. You know, you're gonna make money, but it's really good for the city that
When we're
some.
done, if anybody wants to come in and see it, I'll give you the, should come check it out. It's
I
gonna
don't
be
take
cool.
up on that.
You don't have to worry about any looting, I guess.
No, we're right next to the,
No, I mean, no one can steal anything out of it.
no, believe me, and they don't wanna go down the basement, so.
Mhm.
The basement's, interesting.
Do you have everything you need now to go forward?
Yes, I know what I need to do, so.
Good
I'll
time.
call you, we'll set something up.
Mhm.
So thank you. I didn't know what to expect. I thought you were gonna look at all that stuff and be like, oh, we're gonna slice this guy up.
Next.
It's there, here, about 50,000.
Yeah, I'll give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'll be talking to you soon. Did he get this meeting?
Anything else?
It's all. We haven't taken out.
Yes.
It's not loaded. The Roman country.
Talk about an ongoing project.
If it's not on the agenda, we can't discuss it.
Project is it?
3739 West, Word Street.
Oh,
Yeah, we can't talk about, we can't have a decision.
it's not because we don't want to.
No, it's not.
We're not legally, we're not.
Yeah.
allowed.
It is public comments on the
Yeah.
agenda items only,
Yeah.
because if it had been on the agenda, other people might have seen it and wanted to talk about it. So that's, I mean,
Would
that's.
you like to put it on for next month?
Or talk to,
Don't want to wait, but if that's what you do.
you can talk to us individually, or you can talk to Lynn.
I tried.
Yeah,
We have never talked. I sent you an email. I talked to Jeff a lot. And there was some tier 1 changes that I wanted to make.
we're not supposed to talk about items.
Yeah, and
And it's just because
I'm gonna ask
I
you,
don't,
you don't have to.
no, it's, I don't wanna put anybody on the commission in a position because it's very clear that the agenda says public comments on agenda items only. It's, I'm not trying to block the conversation, absolutely not.
The lawyer would.
Otherwise, it would appear that we're having special conversations and we don't want the
Yeah, I
water down
understand.
here and it's not right to people.
Yeah.
Well, get it on the agenda for next month. You can take all the time you want.
Well, or now get her card and.
Oh,
you guys-
he's like, and he can, you know, he can definitely reach me through Jeff directly or anything like, or my cell phone, just ping me.
Okay.
Well, if I've missed emails from you in the past few months and calls, please do let me know, because I've pretty much been tracking. And I know that Jeff forwarded the emails that you had sent, the one email that you sent to him.
Yeah, so he asked me to send one to you directly, which, you know.
Yeah, and then we've been following with some different context. I wanted to get context. So we've been talking about that.
With Jeff.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, if you want to set up a conversation to meet on the site, I'm also more than happy to.
Jeff seems confused.
I think,
Confused me.
because we can't, but you know, and you have on my card, you have my cell, if, because I've been in meetings and I was also sick for 1 week, but if not, you just ping me with a text and say, hey.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I thought he said the latest concern was maybe a key committee member, so it's.
But I mean, yeah, again,
You just told me yesterday, so I didn't have time to get on
Yeah.
the agenda.
We'll get on the agenda for next
Yeah.
month and
Okay, will do. Thank you.
we'll try our best there.
Yeah, but, you know.
We
We
hear
can't, we do.
so are we closing the meeting?
Yes. Say, I would ask if there was any public comment, the public has left us, so with that, I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Interesting.